Hey guys, it's Raul again, and today I'm going to be doing my November wrap-up. So in the month of November, I read a total of 6 books and 1 graphic novel, which to me was pretty awesome because I don't really read too much because I am a little bit of a slower reader, so this was a very successful reading month for me. So let's just jump into all of these books that I read this month. Now, the first book that I completed in the month of November is a book that I started in the month of October but finished in November, and that was Night Film by Marisha Pessl. This was a buddy read that I did with my friend Cherie, which I will link her page down below for you guys. And this is about a famous movie director whose daughter dies, and it's kind of being ruled out as a suicide, and our main character in this book is an investigative reporter who has a past with this movie director and has kind of investigated him before and kind of really dealt with his past before. When he finds out that this man's daughter dies, he kind of wants to go into this investigation and kind of find out really what happened, just because this man is just so mysterious and so strange that he doesn't really believe that it was a suicide, so he really wants to delve deep and really find out exactly what happened to this man's daughter. Now, throughout this book, he partners up with 2 people, and then within the 3 of them, they kind of encounter a lot of different characters and start investigating this story and trying to find out what happens through the eyes of all of these other people that this girl encountered right before her death. So, to me, it was really interesting, all of these different characters that they encountered, and kind of how the story went unfolding throughout them meeting these characters. I thought it was really interesting. A lot of these characters they met were really, really creepy. It was very suspenseful, and I really was enjoying this story. I felt like it did drag a little bit, but going back and kind of thinking, well, what parts could really be taken out, there isn't really any parts in here that I felt were unnecessary or felt like they could have gotten rid of. And so, I don't know, I just felt like it was long, like I said, but nothing was really unnecessary. And it did get me a little slumpy, which is why I didn't end up finishing it in October and finished it in November instead. But other than that, I felt like it was still a really solid story, and I really enjoyed it, other than it being, really long. And the ending for me, I just wasn't satisfying, at least for me, which is another one of my complaints on this book, is that I just didn't feel like the ending was enough. I don't know, after everything that he went through, and after this story being as long as it was, I felt like I would have wanted a little bit more out of the ending. But other than that, I still ended up giving it a 3.5 out of 5 stars, leaning more toward 4 stars now that I think about it. But either way, it was very enjoyable. I really enjoyed doing this buddy read, and it was a pretty cool book. The next book I completed in the month of November was also a book that I started in October but didn't finish until November, and that was The Strain by Guillermo del Toro and Chuck Hogan. Now, this book I absolutely loved. This book I ended up giving, I believe, a 4.5 stars. But this is kind of a vampire apocalypse type story where this plane lands at the JFK airport, and when it lands, there's kind of no life whatsoever on this plane. People really don't know what happened. They don't know why it just completely shut off and there was no communication. So they go in to investigate what's going on this plane, and things kind of unfold from there. There's like this ancient evil virus that turns people into vampires, and it kind of starts to spread throughout New York City. It was a really awesome book. It was very, very action-packed. It was terrifying at some points. Like, this book straight out scared me. There were just moments in here with just like dark, creepy houses where these vampires were just like attacking people. It was very, very scary, and this book definitely is not for the faint of heart. If you get scared very easily, I would definitely stay away from this book. But this book, like I said, was very terrifying. My one complaint with this is that I felt like I couldn't really connect with a lot of the characters too much. I felt like they were a little bit too generic. They didn't really get into too much backstory with them. I did care enough for them that I didn't want some of them to die. I was rooting for some of these characters to keep going, and I think that kept me going with this book, is the fact that I at least was rooting for the characters, even though I didn't really care for them much. And the plot, I thought, was really, really cool. And the writing wasn't the greatest, but it did really keep me intrigued, and it was a good pace. It was very, very good pacing, very fast paced, and even though this book was pretty long, I felt like I got through it fairly quickly. So I really, really did enjoy this one, and I'm looking forward to the other 2 books in this series because this is a trilogy. So yeah, I ended up, like I said, giving this about a 4.5 stars. Now, after completing 2 somewhat scary and creepy books, I wanted somewhat of a contemporary to pick up, so I ended up going to the library and picking up Burn for Burn by Jenny Han and Shaban Vivian. And this is a book that I heard about last month during the monthly recommendations for trilogies, and some people mentioned this book, and I felt really intrigued. I know a lot of people out there really enjoy Jenny Han, but nothing of Jenny Han's really spoke to me, or I felt like I needed to go pick up, because it was very YA contemporary love stories, and you know, I like some paranormal. I enjoy love stories, but there has to be something else kind of going along with it, and this was a revenge story. So I really was intrigued by the fact that it was a revenge story, and it gave me the chance to check out Jenny Han's writing, which I really enjoyed. Now, this book is about 3 girls who go out to kind of take revenge on these 3 people that have kind of been bullying them or making their lives a living hell. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it. It was kind of a little reminiscent of like Pretty Little Liars, which I really enjoy watching, which is probably why I ended up picking up this book. I ended up giving this a 3.5 out of 5 stars just because of the fact that I felt like I wasn't the target audience for this book. Obviously, I'm not the target audience, but it was still very enjoyable. I still really enjoyed it. I did feel that the characters and everything were a little bit juvenile, but like I said, I'm not the target audience. I still really enjoyed it. I ended up giving it a 3.5 out of 5 stars, and I still really kind of want to find out what happens, because it left kind of on somewhat of a cliffhanger. There are 2 more books in this series, so I'm still going to end up picking them up from my library to find out what's going to happen with this, because I'm still really intrigued. I still really enjoyed this book. Then I ended up picking Everything by Nicola Yoon, and this was the book that my wife got me this year for my birthday, and I was really excited going into this book because I had heard really awesome things. Nicola Yoon, this is her first book. This is her debut novel that just came out this year, and the premise seemed pretty cool. It was about a girl who is kind of has some kind of sickness where she's allergic to everything. She doesn't leave her house. Her mom doesn't let her go out because she is kind of at risk of just getting sick with anything. So she kind of lives her life within her house and kind of just like, you know, imagines her life or how it would be if she didn't have this sickness. So then she has a boy who moves next door, and she kind of gets intrigued with this boy, and they kind of start IMing and text messaging and stuff back and forth, and kind of creates this relationship between the 2 of them. I thought it was pretty cute, but going back to this, I initially ended up giving it, I think it was a 4.5 stars. The ending to me kind of wasn't the greatest. There were some things that happened toward the end of the book that, now that I go back and think about it, I felt were a little problematic. I don't want to say what they are because it will end up spoiling the book for you guys, but I still thought it was a pretty cute book, a really nice read. I ended up giving it, like I said, a 4.5 stars, but now that I think about it, it's probably more of a 3.5 stars. So I still really enjoyed it. I still really liked the writing. I still really liked the way it was formatted, and it really is a beautiful book to have on my shelf, and I still really enjoyed it. It was very cute and very nice story for the most part. Then I ended up picking up Chars, a short story anthology by Mr. C.J. Cummings, and for you guys who do not know, C.J. Cummings is Chris from the channel Christoria 2027, which I will link their page down below for you guys. They're awesome. Definitely check them out if you haven't already. And Chris definitely has become one of my favorite authors. I read one of his previous books a couple months ago, Bird Snatch Volume 1, which I really enjoyed, which he wrote with Mr. Mark Ryan. And this is Chris's first solo work. Consists of 20 short stories, and they vary in a lot of different genres. There's some horror, some mystery, some contemporary, some bizarro. It was just really interesting, and obviously going into a short story anthology, there are definitely going to be short stories that you are going to enjoy more than others, but just know that the writing in here throughout the entire thing was just absolutely amazing, absolutely beautiful. There's one short story in here that I, for the rest of my life, will probably end up rereading every single year, and that is This One House. It was just absolutely beautiful. Just such a beautiful story. And like I said, everything here is just brilliantly written and very well done. I ended up giving this a 5 out of 5 stars. Just like I said, going into a short story anthology, you know you're going to enjoy some stories more than others, so I'm not judging it on the fact that I enjoyed some stories more than others. I'm judging it on the fact that it was written so beautifully. It was such a great work. And if you guys have not heard of this author or checked out their channel, definitely do. Definitely give his writing a try because it was just such a great book. I got through it really, really quickly. Like I said, it was short, 20 short stories, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful book. Then the next book I picked up was one that I've been meaning to pick up for the longest time and ended up just grabbing it from my library because I just couldn't wait any longer to buy this book, and that is Legend by Marie Lu. I am so excited that I finally started this series because this book was amazing. This is a young adult dystopian about these two main characters named June and Day. And in this future, every student or every kid kind of at a certain point takes this test that kind of lets them know what they're going to be end up doing for the rest of their lives, whether they're going to be thrown into the slums and go to bad schools, or they're going to go into the military and go into like the better schools and stuff, according to what this test tells them. So one of the main characters, June, is put into kind of the higher ups because she scores really, really well in her test and goes into the military and becomes a really great person because she's super smart. And then Day becomes kind of this notorious criminal because he didn't score too well. And certain things happen that they kind of pit June against Day, and June now has to go into like this search for Day, and it becomes this big cat and mouse type of book. I loved it. I did not really know much going into this book because I kind of wanted to go in as blindly as possible, but this was just absolutely awesome. The writing was really good. It really hooked me from the beginning. I really loved it. I ended up giving this a 4.5 out of 5 stars just because I felt like the only thing that was problematic for me was that the relationship between the two main characters for me just wasn't convincing enough. And it felt a little forced, but other than that, the plot was great. It was really fast-paced, and I absolutely loved it. I'm so excited to continue on with the rest of this series. And also in the month of November, I read a graphic novel, which was The Wicked and the Vine, Volume 1, which I do not have with me because I lent it out to my brother. But I really, really enjoyed this novel. This is about these gods who come down to Earth every 90 years, I believe, and are allowed to live on Earth for 2 years, and then they kind of do their thing for 2 years and then die off. A lot of people have read this graphic novel, and a lot of people I've heard a lot of really mixed things on this one, and I kind of see why there are mixed reactions on it. I was a little bit confused going in at the beginning, but kind of it took me probably a couple pages just to really get into the writing style and to get into the story and what was going on. But kind of after I really understood what was going on, it was such a great story. The characters ended up being really great characters. I really loved these gods that were coming down and kind of the plot that was revolving around them. The artwork was absolutely beautiful. I ended up giving this a 4 stars, I believe it was. And I really, really enjoyed it. I'm really excited to get into the second volume because I do own volume 2, which I'll probably end up reading this month also. But this was such a great graphic novel, and I was really, really excited going into it, and it didn't really meet a lot of my expectations, so I was really excited when I finally picked up and finished this graphic novel series because it was really great. And a book that I started in the month of November but have not finished, but will definitely finish within the next couple days, was Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. I finally started this book. So excited. I feel like I'm kind of late to the party, but a lot of you guys know what this book is about. I'm really excited. I'm about 240 pages into this book right now and absolutely loving it. So my full thoughts will definitely come at the end of December when I finish this because this is just such an awesome book so far and I'm really enjoying it. So yeah guys, that is it for all of the books that I read in the month of November. Like I said, had a pretty great reading month considering the fact that I am a slower reader and I don't really finish too many books in a month, but I did this month, so I'm really excited that I got through all of these books. I really enjoyed all of them. If you guys have read any of these books and want to talk, please let me know down below and we'll comment back and forth because I really enjoyed a lot of these books and I really want to talk more about all of these. So thank you guys all for watching and I will see you all next time.